Hi everyone, I'm Miu from Susan's family. Today I'll teach you how to crochet the flower bell crossbody bag. This bag is divided into 3 parts. The main part, the lining and the button. It should be noted that a variegated yarn is used for crocheting here. Start with different colors, and the crocheting effect will also be different. You can choose the starting color segment according to your preference. First, let's learn the main part. It is divided into section 1 and section 2. Section 3 and the strap. All of these parts are connected using motifs. Let's start with section 1. First, connect the first row, then work and join around for 4 rounds. Only the first motif in row 1 is a complete motif. The rest of the motifs are crocheted and joined simultaneously. Here, connect them in the order from left to right, and from bottom to top. You can also learn the method, and connect in the order you're comfortable with. First, crochet the first motif of row 1. Start with a magic ring technique. Crochet in rounds counterclockwise. Add pearls after completing it. The crochet stitches used are chain stitches, and single crochets, slip stitches and treble crochets. Please watch my demonstration for the specific crochet method. First, cast on. Take out the corresponding yarn. The actual project uses variegated yarn for crocheting. Everyone can choose according to their own preference. The swatch is made with cotton yarn for easier viewing. Used for demonstration. Colors are random. For specific yarn, color scheme and hook size, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instruction. Start with a magic ring. Leave the starting yarn tail a bit longer. Then work the first round. Make 1 chain stitch as the turning chain for the single crochet. It doesn't count as 1 stitch. Then work 8 single crochets into the ring. Pull tight to close the ring after completing. Finally, work 1 slip stitch into the first single crochet to join. If you're having trouble figuring it out, you can count the stitches from back to front. Make sure to pull tight on the joining slip stitch. The first round is complete. We'll consider the side with clearer texture as the right side of the entire piece. Now move on to crochet the second round. Start by crocheting 7 chain stitches. Then insert your hook into the previous slip stitch insertion position below. Work 1 slip stitch there. Gently tighten it slightly. Next, work 1 slip stitch on the left stitch. Seven chain stitches. Slip stitch once more in the same position. We'll consider the crochet stitches worked on this stitch as a group. Now repeat this group's crochet technique all the way around the round. Leave the starting yarn tail at the back for now, and don't handle it. Once the last group is completed, the second round is done. The fabric forms 8 chain spaces. Now we'll crochet the third round. First, work 1 chain stitch from the middle behind the chain space of the previous round on the left side. Insert into the first stitch of round 1. Which is the insertion position for the slip stitch? Work 1 slip stitch. 9 chain stitches. Slip stitch once more in the same position. We'll consider the crochet stitches we're about to work as a group. Continue with another group. First, work 1 chain stitch on the second stitch of round 1. Insert from the middle behind the chain space of the previous round. Slip stitch into the slip stitch insertion position. Nine chain stitches. Slip stitch once more in the same position. Second group is complete. Continue crocheting around using this method. Remember not to miss the transition chain stitch. Once the last group is done, round 3 will be completed. Continue to crochet the fourth round. Make 1 chain as the beginning chain. Into the 1 chain space of the previous round, where it started. Which is right here. Work 1 single crochet. Chain 3. Continue to pick the 1 chain space of the previous round. Correspondingly make a single crochet, with 3 chains in between as transition. Finish this round. After completing the last 3 chain stitches, join with a slip stitch into the starting single crochet stitch. Round 4 is completed. Now crochet round 5. First, work 1 slip stitch into the left side chain space. The oval-shaped slip stitch doesn't need to be tightened. Then chain 4 stitches. In the same hole, work 1 treble crochet. Yarn over the hook twice. Insert the hook in. Draw the yarn through. There are 4 loops on the hook now. Yarn over in sequence. Pass through the first 2 loops. Repeat 3 times. Treble crochet is complete. Next, in the same position, work another treble crochet. Yarn over twice. Insert the hook. Draw the yarn through. Yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops in sequence. Repeat 3 times. Treble crochet is complete. Continue with 3 more treble crochets. 4 chain stitches, and 1 slip stitch. We'll treat the stitch worked into the chain space as one petal. Pick up the corresponding chain space from the previous round and work the petal. Finish this round. After completing the last petal, round 5 is complete. Now you can measure the motif's dimensions. Compare it with the size shown on the chart. If there's a significant difference, adjust your tension and crochet again. To avoid affecting the finished product's size, once the size fits well, proceed to fasten off the yarn. Secure with 1 chain stitch, pull a large loop, leave a 5 cm yarn tail and cut it off. Tighten. On the wrong side, weave in following the texture. You can weave in a few more stitches. This completes the first motif. Next is sewing on pearls. You can attach pearls after finishing each motif, or wait until all motifs are joined before attaching them all together. Here I'll use a swatch to demonstrate how to secure them. Thread the starting yarn tail through the yarn needle. Make sure the needle can pass through the pearl. The yarn here on the swatch is thick, so I'll split it into 2 strands for sewing. Secure the pearl at the center on the right side. Sew a few times to reinforce. Finally tie a knot and weave in the ends on the wrong side. This secures 1 pearl in place. You can attach pearls on other motifs using the same method. This completes the first motif. Continue crocheting the second motif on the first row. The crochet technique for the first 4 rounds is the same as before. I've already finished that part in advance. Now work on the 5th round. This round needs to be connected to the right side of the first motif. You can choose any petal position to connect. On my swatch I'll connect at the first petal position. First complete the second treble crochet stitch of the first petal normally. Take out the crochet hook. Insert it into the petal position of the first motif. The middle treble crochet stitch loop. Mindful both motifs are with right sides facing up. Pull the yarn through. Then return to the current motif. Finish this petal. This way, two petals are connected in the middle position. For any motif connections you encounter later, you can follow this same technique. After finishing the second treble crochet stitch, draw the yarn through the petal you want to connect the middle stitch loop. Then finish the petal. Specific connection method. You can also do it according to your own habit, as long as the connection looks neat and flat. Continue following the chart to complete this round. Finally, cut the yarn. Hide the yarn tail on the wrong side. Don't forget to sew on the pearls. Will not remind again later? This concludes the explanation for crocheting and connecting the second motif. Third motif in the first row. First 4 rounds are crocheted normally. Fifth round is crocheted while connecting to the second motif. Connection method is the same as connecting the previous 2 motifs. Pay attention that it needs to connect to the middle of the petal on the right side of the second motif, with 3 petals skipped above and below the petal of this third motif being connected. You can choose according to your own habit. After connecting, the motifs form a long strip. The remaining motifs in the first row will be connected using the same method as the third motif, crocheting and connecting simultaneously. Connect the corresponding number of motifs. Refer to the chart. Complete crocheting and connecting the first row of motifs. This concludes the explanation for the first row of section 1. Starting with the first motif in round 2, connect it to the 3 adjacent petals on the far left and top of the first motif in row 1. I'll demonstrate using a sample swatch. The number of motifs is random. Starting the connection from the first petal in this sample. First, complete the second treble crochet stitch. Remove the hook. Locate the first motif in row 1, the petal symmetrically positioned to the left of the connected spot. Connect to that petal. Using the same method as before. Then complete crocheting this petal. Continue connecting the next 2 adjacent petals. After completing that, crochet the remaining part as usual. Finally, cut the yarn and weave in the ends. This completes the first motif of round 2. For the second motif of round 2, it needs to connect with the 2 petals on the right side of the first motif in this round. Also connect to the first 2 motifs of row 1. In this sample, continue starting from the first petal. First connect to the first motif of this round. Find the petal on the right side of the connected position. Then connect the adjacent petal. This connection has already been done once. You can pull through from the previous connection point. When you encounter 3 petals to connect later, you can follow this same method. Here, you can also pick a connection spot that fits properly with 2 threads to insert the hook, as long as the connection lays flat and looks neat. Continue connecting the adjacent petal. After that, connect the 2 corresponding petals of the second motif in row 1. Mindful not to twist. Right side faces out. After completing, check the connection position. Finish this round normally. The second motif is now connected. For the remaining motifs in this round, connect them using the same method as the second motif. Pay attention to the connection points, refer to the chart. Note the two motifs on the right end. Their connection positions differ slightly from these other motifs. Refer to the chart. The method is the same. Pay attention to the last motif. Connect it to the petal corresponding to the left side of the first motif. Once completed, the motifs will form a circular ring. Make sure to tidy up with the right side facing out. Everyone follow the chart and complete it. That concludes the explanation for the second round of motifs. Next, for the third round of motifs, attach them at the corresponding positions on the second round of motifs. Pay attention to the beginning and ending motif connection. Only connect one like this horizontally. When encountering 3 petals to connect, pick a suitable position to attach. Everyone follow the chart and complete it. For the following rounds of motifs, continue connecting in rounds. You can also connect in your own preferred order, as long as the final effect matches the layout diagram. That concludes the explanation for section 1. The following sections, section 2 and section 3, are both connected to the last round of section 1. Connect from left to right. Pay attention to the motifs at the beginning and end of each row. Refer to the chart for the edge connection positions. In the end, one petal will remain unconnected. The final row only has one motif. Just connect the 4 petals underneath. The last shoulder strap consists of 2 motifs. Connect them at the upper and lower petal positions. To create this effect, please refer to the previous demonstration. Follow the chart to complete the connections. That's all for the main part. Next, we'll learn about the lining. It's divided into 2 parts, fabric lining and lace lining. First, make the fabric lining, then sew on the lace lining. Watch my demonstration for the detailed method. First, make the fabric lining. Take the lining fabric, fold it in half from the middle of the long side. Place the main piece on top of the lining fabric. Smooth it out. I'll use a sample to demonstrate here. There are fewer motifs used. No shoulder strap is made. Please pay attention and follow your actual project. The bottom of the bag extends about 1-2 cm beyond the folded position of the lining fabric. Make sure the lining is slightly smaller than the main piece. Then draw a line along the edge of the main piece. Draw it to section 2. Second to last row of section 3. Which is the row with 2 motifs? Slightly above the middle position, about 1 cm. Make sure the fabric is tidy and flat. The sample has fewer motifs, so the curve is more noticeable. In real side parts, you can draw straight lines. Middle position follows along both side areas. Draw a line for the skipped petal position. Make sure the fabric is neat and tidy. Draw it up to the same height as the line on the right side. The meeting point should be about 1 centimeter above the middle connection point. Then continue this line straight. Shift it towards the fabric side by about 1 centimeter. So it roughly matches the straight line formed when connecting to the motif. After removing the main piece, complete the outline. Try to make the edges as smooth as possible. Now cut the lining along the outer outline of the drawn line. Make sure the front and back fabrics are perfectly aligned. As you can see, this is what the cut lining looks like after finishing. Cut through the middle here. Next, take out the sewing thread. Insert it into a thin needle. Fold it in half and tie a knot at the end. Pin stitch about 1 centimeter from the edge along the side seam. Try to sew as densely as possible. You can also sew using the backstitch method if you prefer. It's up to your personal preference. Finally, tie a knot and cut the thread. Sew the other side in the same way. Everyone just complete it. After sewing, stretch out the lining. Fold a small triangle on both bottom sides. Sew across the folded part horizontally. The folded width here should be about 2 cm. You can also try placing it inside the main piece to check. Confirm the width of the fold. Pay attention to centering the side seam position. Sew the other side in the same way. Everyone complete it. Now turn the lining over. Attach it inside the main piece. You can secure it first with a thread. Same for the other side. At the edge of section 2 and section 3 here, fold outward about 1 cm. Correspond roughly to the previously marked lines. Sew and secure this line to match the seam formed by connecting section 2 and section 3 edges. Try not to let any fabric show from the lining. Fold it inward a bit more if possible. Don't let the marked lines show. Try to carry the yarn through the fabric and material when sewing. Remember to adjust the position as you go. When reaching the end, leave about 2 cm remaining. Tidy up the lining properly. The sewing position should correspond to the middle of the main part side. Fold outward about 1 cm at the top edge. Roughly align with the center position of this row of motifs. Continue sewing. Sew to the other side. At the side position, remember to fold outward about 1 cm. Align with the line formed by the connection. Remember to tidy up the fabric and lining so they fit closely together. Reach the middle position. Remove the previous securing thread. Slightly fold the lining when sewing. Make sure there are no loose threads. Sew a few times for reinforcement. Continue sewing around using the same method as before. Finally, tie off and weave in the ends neatly. This completes one full round of sewing. Lastly, smooth out the lining and main part to lay flat. Along the edges of sections 2 and 3, about 2 cm inward, do another round of stitching. Here I'll demonstrate using one side as an example. When securing, make sure to pick up the yarn from the main part. Don't let any marks show on the front side. Try to keep the stitches short. Sew just up to this point. The other 3 sides can be secured using the same method. Complete this part yourselves. This completes the fabric lining. Next, work on the lace lining. Take out the lace. Find the middle position. Align the center connection point of the strap. The sample doesn't have the strap attached here. There are fewer motifs in the sample. Please follow the actual project as reference. Start from the middle position. Sew the motif along the edge of the lace. I'll demonstrate with one side as an example. When securing, make sure the stitching isn't too visible. Adjust the position as needed. Make sure it stays centered. After sewing the motif in place, continue sewing on the fabric lining. The sample fabric is small. You can turn the lining to the outside. Find a convenient position for sewing. Here, make sure to cover the seam allowance of the lining to make it look neater. Pay attention to centering and symmetry with the stitching line. You can sew directly onto the motif here, for a more secure finish. Make sure it lies flat, and looks neat against the fabric. When you reach the folded triangle position at the end, you can sew it in place. Trim any excess lace. Fold it inside. Then continue sewing along the other side. Sew and secure the lace on the other end using the same method. After completing the entire round, tie off and weave in the ends. Finish it up. That's all for the lace lining. Finally, let's make the buttons. It includes buttonholes and purl buttons. Watch me demonstrate the specific method. First, crochet the buttonhole. Find the middle connecting point between section 2 and section 3 of the main part. Pick up about 2 strands of yarn and join the thread. You can make a knot. Adjust it a bit. Then crochet 10 chain stitches. Join with a slip stitch in the same position. You can try with a purl button. If it doesn't fit properly, adjust the number of chain stitches according to the actual situation. Then break the yarn. Weave in the yarn tail neatly through the fabric. The buttonhole is complete. Finally, at the symmetrical position on the other side of the buttonhole, attach one purl button. Use sewing thread and sew it a few times to secure. Finally, tie off and weave in the ends. Fasten it when using. This completes the button. Up to this point, the entire bag has been fully explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.